think I always made the comment that once a miller, always a miller.
Ravel, ambitious, but brilliant! I don't believe it! I swear I do not believe it! Good heavens, he's done it again! Another promotion for the big man.
I've got 12 bottles of champagne in my office and we're going to drink them all night.
Do me a favor, drop me off in Rotherham.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to New York Talk. This is the Rotherham United podcast. Happy days in the Rotherham end. As expected, Rotherham fail in the first round of the FA Cup, the first hurdle. Who saw that coming, everybody? Who saw that coming? But a really, really, really bad afternoon against Cheltenham. Not just a loss, a really, really poor performance to pick out some awful defending. Yeah, and we'll see. We'll see how we get an hour out of this. This could be fun. Mick's back. How is Mick doing today?
I'm very good, mate. Thank you. All good.
Very, very good. Tom's back. How are you going, Tom?
I'm doing well.
Football aside and all that, yeah? I just realised last minute. I waited till he put himself back on mute to ask me another question. Sorry, Tom. Boys, how are we going, Danny?
I'm doing all right, lads. Yeah, the FA Cup's not the best, is it? I'm glad we're after it. No worries at all. Not like we've beaten an EFL club in it in 11 years or anything like that.
Yeah, it's a tradition. Rotherham doesn't have many traditions, I suppose, but really being garbage in the FA Cup is a tradition that we seem to be sticking to, which is something, I suppose. Martin Holland's with us, as is Damon Coward. Damon Coward says, "Evening, lads." He thinks that the Steve Evans hasn't got a clue. The Miller's 6-6. Everybody, how bad was that? Paula Rhodes says, "Evening all." She was hoping we might have done a Shrewsbury and ship out Steve Evans, but no such luck. Scott Kent's with us, as is Darren Cook. Eve Scott says, "Evening all." Credit to those who went to see that. 2,000 people, whatever they were. Sarah Ogden says, "Evening all." So she said, her son's starting to understand the character building. 3 visits to the New York Stadium, 2 defeats and a win. Yeah, that's the kind of ratio to get used to be fair, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We talked about this on Thursday, Mick, that the FA Cup, it's not a free hit, because that's the wrong way to put it, but not the end of the world if you lose in the first round of the FA Cup, because you get extra weekends. It's not the end of the world. But how things happen is quite important. And we said on Thursday that if you can lose, that's fine, but put in a performance, make it difficult, this, that, and the other, the obvious. And we just took another step backwards. Some of the defending for those 3 goals is just horrific. This is a team that are full league below us. Well, this is not, a team at the same level or a team that's at the top end of League 2. These are a team that are really struggling at the minute, and they earned their win, and that's really bad.
It's not good enough, is it? It's not good enough, and that's been a theme that's run through our season. Isn't it? The teams that we've lost against have I would argue they've probably not earned the win, because we've not really put up much of a fight, and Saturday was no exception to that. So, it's not great. It's not great, and we're in a situation where we're starting to cling now to the fact that sooner or later it'll turn around, and I don't know. Well, that's all we've got, isn't it? Ultimately, that is all we've got. So we're just going to have to hope that sooner or later he can turn it around. But performances like that, week after week after week, now we're into November, and there has been little, if any, improvement in performance levels since day 1 in August. So, let's see what happens for the rest of the season. But Saturday was just not good enough again. But the key to this one, as you rightly pointed out, is it's not good enough against a team that's a full division lower than us in places. So it's I don't like it. It's horrible, but got to get used to it, haven't we? Been here before.
Yeah, we have.
As though the vast majority of us as Rotherham United supporters, or a majority of Rotherham United supporters, have not seen all this before, because we have.
We have.
And when we saw it before, it was just as frustrating then. And the things that we say about the players, about the manager and everything else have not changed over the years. They've always been the same things that have been said. So it's just highlighted a little bit more now, because there's a public forum for everybody to do it on, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and I think that the thing that kind of makes it worse, Danny, is that it's not like we've been playing very well. You know, if we'd have had 5 or 6 games prior to this game, we've been playing pretty well, but we hadn't won them, but we've picked up a convincing win or 2. And then you lose this game by playing badly. So it's just a one-off. It's the FA Cup. These weird things can happen. But what Saturday wasn't a weird thing. Although it's technically a league low, it's not really a shock that we lost to Cheltenham, because we've got that performance in us, and we showed it again that's not those traits of failure which we saw on Saturday. They're not unique to Saturday, are they? Those mistakes of week in, week out.
Yeah, those traits have followed us like a bad smell since the first game of the season, really. And you know, it's such a negative mentality to have going into games thinking we're not going to get something. But I remember I worked Friday, and I was saying to some of the regulars at the pub, we're not going to beat Cheltenham tomorrow, you know. And so what are you saying? That they're a League Two team, we should be beating them. It's like, no, I'm telling you, we're not going to beat them. And sure enough, see what happened. But it's getting like last season, where it's getting predictable. Our mistakes are getting predictable. The ways to play through us are getting predictable, but there's no attempt to try and rectify it. Though it feels like there's no attempt in training to go, right, we need to stop doing that and we need to work on this. It feels like we're just throwing things at the wall and hoping something sticks. And the one thing that's sticking at the minute is Malik Wilkes, who's a lone player from the local rivals, who
might be injured.
Yeah, who might be injured, and also whose parent club will be well within the rights to recall him in January if he continues to perform well for us. So it's just not a nice situation to be in. I mean, we could be in a situation like Huddersfield losing 1-0 away at Tamworth. That were quite funny. But losing to Cheltenham when arguably a fair number of fans didn't expect anything out of the game is a bit gutting and sort of justifying, maybe a bit strong, but I can understand why fans booed at half-time and booed at full-time as well, because like Mick says, it's just simply not good enough. We were sold something that isn't this. You know, it's like Steve Evans has sold us £10 for 30 quid, and it's just not a nice feeling. And the things that have been promised have been backtracked on. Like, I seem to remember, Matt, when me and you went to the fans forum, we asked the questions about the cups. You know, I asked the question about how is he going to approach the Papa John's trophy, and he said that he wants to take the fans back to Wembley, which in my view is either going all the way in that cup or at least the playoffs, neither of which we look like doing, if I'm being honest. And I can't remember who asked it. It might have been you, it might have been somebody else who asked the question about treating the cup seriously and going on cup runs. And so far in the other cup competitions, we got to the second round and lost to League Two Fleetwood, and didn't make it 90 minutes. Didn't make 100 minutes worth of impact in the FA Cup and lost to League Two Cheltenham. So it feels like the things that got presented to us have been backtracked on, and that is the same for the way we're playing, because we were not good defensively at all. We weren't. The only place we were good, really, was with Malik Wilkes being on the pitch, who again might be injured. But defensively and in midfield, it's so flat and poor, and there's very little momentum to actually play football and to move around the pitch, and it's just so what's the word? Deflating. It's just deflating being in this position, because it's the exact same position as last season, but I think it makes it worse that we're a division below, in a division we're almost expected to do well in, and that is the majority of the fans' expectation. We're expected to do well, we're expected to perform well and play good football and really challenge teams. But the teams that we've challenged this season, we've been playing against 10 men. You know, the two games we've challenged in, Huddersfield and and Reading, I think it was, we were playing against 10 men. So if we only challenge against 10 men, no wonder we're in the position that we are when we get 11v11, because it's just not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, they were booing, and Chris Tedder sums up this. When we were booing later on in the second half. So Alex McDonald chested the ball down and just absolutely wellied it to the other end of the pitch to absolutely nobody, and that kind of summed up the performance really. The lack of ideas. Alex McDonald coming back on it right back, which is
it doesn't know, does it? No, it
does.
doesn't.
It's no idea. The players ain't got a clue.
It sums up the tactics. Get it down, kick it hard.
I mean, this one was particularly just Peter K-esque.
But that's it.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it is, just oof it long.
Yes. We'll come on to the goals in a minute, maybe. Let's talk about Steve Evans, because we're getting a lot of questions, as you'd expect, on this. This is not a topic we particularly like to bring up at any time in a manager's reign, to be honest with you. But Scott Kemp, for example, says, big question, lads. We lose out in the derby. Are we going to sit in the fence or say Evans out? Somebody else has put something as well, which I can't find where it is now. It's gone somewhere. Apologies. But this is where we're 17 games in the league. And what I would add to that is, 17 games in total from Steve Evans' reign, if you count the 3 from last season. Sorry. If you add into there the cups as well, Tom, and I know it's the cups aren't important in terms of winning necessarily, but I was saying this to Ben on the way out on Saturday that the cups are important to get to work out kinks and work out systems. So we've actually had more than 20 games with Steve Evans in charge. We've actually had more than 20 games this season. 20 games in total this season. More than 20 in total with Steve Evans. For me, that's enough. That's enough to start seeing where you're going and steps and all this, that, and the other. 20 games is a really, really good sample size for me. And it's not good enough at the minute. It's not even close to being good enough at the minute. And this is not just Saturday. This is not just a reaction for me. This 20-game period has not been good enough.
No, and like you say, there's no identity to go along with to see where it's going wrong and whatnot. It's just a case of the same drab week in, week out. I think it's maybe been 2-3 halves of football that have looked decent all season. And like Danny said, 2 of them came against 10 men. So it's like, and the other one was the first half against Peterborough, and then second half was a load of drab again. It's just not good enough at all in the slightest. And the issue we keep facing time and time again is that if people don't want Evans in, then who do you get in instead? And I'm in the same boat. I mean, I think I said it from the get-go where Evans was such a short-term, let's see if we can get firing again, get the fans back on side, compete at the top end for this next season, maybe the season after. But long-term, is he going to be here for the next 5 years? Probably not. And that's probably, even if he was doing well, he probably wouldn't be here for the next 5 years. So where does that leave us? It doesn't leave us with, it's such a tough situation because it doesn't leave us with anyone really long-term thought process, basically. So it's really tough just to watch this drab week in, week out. I think we said it in our predictions that if we lost against Cheltenham, I would be fine with it because it isn't a must-win game, but it's the performance that mattered. And getting beat 3-1 at home against a team that's below you in the football pyramid, and below you a whole league in the football pyramid, and playing how we did is just, I mean, manager comes under scrutiny, but the players have got to come under a lot of scrutiny. And I know Mick, I know you said before, Mick, that they've been told to put it on the floor and hoof it. Whatever they've been told, and I agree with you. I think it's somewhere along the lines of let's get the ball forward as quickly as possible. But some of that defending was atrocious for non-league, Sunday league, whatever you want level. I mean, that first goal, does Dawson just palm it into the floor? And
yes, honestly.
And then the third goal is just a case of who can actually be arsed, and it's like none of them can. And that's not even you anytime, and this is where I'll give Evans credit. Anytime you think of an Evans team, you think of dogged, kind of hearty, tough opposition. That third goal was atrocious, absolutely atrocious. I mean, it's a half-arsed challenge. I mean, originally it's a load of crap to start with Holmes being dispossessed in his own near enough on the edge of the box because he takes too long. And then it's a case of, okay, he's tracked. He's made the player make a decision. Rafferty's wafted a leg at it. Humphreys has started to run off at the other end of the pitch because he don't know where he's going. And Jules, I don't know what he's doing. And it's just a load of crap that is just never going to get better because the players don't want to be better. And that is pure attitude. And for that, you can't defend anyone at the club, both on the pitch and off the pitch. It's just an absolute shambles of a performance. And let's not sugarcoat it either. Stevenage was crap as well. For 70 minutes, absolute dross. And we were lucky that we got anything. We were lucky that we had capable players who turn up in big moments, i.e. Wilkes. And for that second goal, probably Holmes did a little bit of direct aggressiveness. Yeah. But it's a team that lacks any kind of plan, cohesion, any kind of confidence. It's just, I don't get where we're going, what we're doing. If any of these players are here next season, nobody is going to tell me that they're happy about that. Even the ones that, the only player that you look at and you think, won't mind if they're here next season is Wilkes, and he's not even our player. He's a lone player. It's just, it's an absolute shambles. And especially if you compare this to 2-3 seasons ago when we were, when we first went up, when you were thinking, we actually have the means here to really establish ourselves in the Championship. And lo and behold, 2 years later, genuine relegation quality football, League Two quality football that wouldn't suffice in League Two. And it's just, what the hell, like, where do you actually go from here? Because you can't overhaul the squad. I mean, you brought in 17 new players or whatever the hell it was. You don't play half of them. You then decide that, I don't know, it's just an absolute shambles. And it's such a backward step. And people could blame Taylor and Richardson and Evans, but all in all, it's the culture's changed. We never tied down players that we should have tied down. We never invested where and when we should have invested. We got unlucky throughout the process, sure, but how we should have... This could go on for hours, right? But 3 years ago, our three best players are probably worth about 15 million now in today's market. I mean, Benny makes up 8 million of that. If you tie down those assets then, you don't need to worry about money in 3 years. We could be as bad as we are now, but we wouldn't need to worry about money. So, I mean, like, we've only got ourselves to blame at that point. And look, it will get better. We all know it will. When is the question? Because it will get better. We've still got a good side on paper. We just need to get the best out of them. And currently the confidence isn't there. The tactics are nowhere to be seen. And confidence is rock bottom. I think I said that for whatever. It's a shambles at the minute.
It is, yeah. I thought I'd go back and look at Steve Evans' records at previous clubs and how he started at other clubs to see if he is a slow starter. Because in my head, Steve Evans is not a slow starter. He's a guy you bring in for an impact. And that is correct. This is the joint worst start he's ever had at a football club, ever. It was joint. He got 21 points in the 17 games so far, which is the same he had with Gillingham, who finished 10th 2 seasons in a row under Steve Evans. Every other club he's done better. Other than Boston, I can't find a stats for Boston because I can't find out the exact date he started. And because it's 1998 in conference, so that's difficult information to find. But this is the worst start, joint worst start Steve Evans has ever had at the 6 or 7 clubs that he's had. And we go back to last time we were here, Mick. And I've put a lot of good stuff on social media about it, kind of his first reign here and some of the awful results we had, the Dagenham, the Port Vale, this, that, and the other. But this is different for me, and it's significantly different because, again, if you go back and look at those fixtures, we started in 2012 with a brilliant 3-0 win over Burton. We then followed it with a brilliant 4-0 victory at home to Bradford City. We also, I think, in the first, if I'm just picking the first 17 games, that's what I've picked from. We also, I think, we beat Oxford, who were a good team back then, 3-1 as well. There were a couple of 1-0, 2-0s in there as well. There was a lot to hang on to. Yeah, football was garbage at times, but there was quite a lot to hang on to in that first 3-month spell or whatever it was for Stevens. It kind of built up a bit of positivity in our heads because of the football we'd seen. We're not getting that. We're not seeing those kind of dominant performances. Even if we're just 1-4, 1-5, we're not seeing any kind of dominant performances. This is a different Steve Evans at the minute. It feels to me a completely different Steve Evans.
I don't know where to start. I genuinely, I don't know where to start. You know, I've got very strong feelings on this, and I'm not gonna start spouting them off now publicly, to any great degree anyway. But yeah, it's not up to the job. It's proven he's not up to the job in more ways than just the performances on the pitch. It's his performances off the pitch as well. But the key ultimately is what happens on the pitch, and the players are not playing for him.
No, they're not.
Whether or not it would appear, let me rephrase that. Let's get some context to it. It appears that the players are not playing for him. Whether that be a combination of, or whether that be because of the tactics that they're being asked to employ, whether that be because of the way that they're being coached, whether that's because of the way that they're being treated, whether it's more likely to be a combination of all three of those plus some other issues as well. But you go back to 2012 and you give us all those stats about the performances and more importantly the victories. We're not in 2012. You know, we're 12 years down the line from 2012, and football has changed so much in those 12 years, and it will change again in the next 12. Unfortunately, Steve Evans and Paul Rayner haven't changed at all, because this is the same person and the same personalities, and this is not a criticism. They are the same people, the same personalities as they were in 2012. And I hear a lot of people saying, you know, give him a couple of transfer windows to get his players in. Yeah, what basically the reason he needs 2 or 3 transfer windows in, I need to choose my words carefully, is so he can get in the type of players that will accept being treated the way he treats players. And eventually, when he's got 2 or 3 transfer windows, he might find 20 or 30, 20, 25 players who will accept being treated that way and being coached the way that they're coached. And that's why he's been successful over a period of time. I'm not convinced that will happen anymore. He's just not up to it. He is not up to the job. And he's proved that this season. The performances have been way below par. A lot of that, some of that is down to the players, fully accepted. But you have to ask yourself why. You have to ask yourself why, because we've seen with our own eyes as supporters, the players that are here this year that were here last year are not bad players. They are not bad players. You know, we can call Cam Humphreys out for not being bothered on Saturday, and he weren't, quite clearly at times. You know, some of his defending, the second goal particularly, you know, was really, really poor. But he's not a bad player. He's an absolute quality footballer. Hakeem Adoffin, you know, he's in and out of games now. He was never that sort of player. He was always involved in the game, always impacting the game, and now he's not. That's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. You know, these players have not just all of a sudden become bad players. You know, they're playing the way they're playing for whatever those reasons are. And in my view, it's coaching and the way that they're treated. You know, you can't bully players anymore. You can't. Players have different attitudes. Whether that's right or wrong is almost a moot point. You know, you can't do it. You can't treat players like we are doing, and then come out in the press and blame your tools as a bad workman, which is essentially what Rayner did on Saturday. I'm sure we'll come on to that in a bit, but a lot of people are saying in the comments that this is not just Steve Evans' problem, and it's not. Football Man, I think, has mentioned, you know, that we've not talked previously about Tony Stewart. We have, We've talked in some depth about Tony Stewart and the impact he is now having on this club. And he's gone from sort of saviour to somebody now who appears that his decision making, and only his decision making, is holding the club back. He's in a difficult situation, Tony Stewart. You know, he's banged the drum for Evans 2 seasons essentially, and he stamped his feet and eventually got his own way, and now it's going down the pan. So he's in a very, very difficult situation, and Tony Stewart hasn't made his millions by being a shrinking violet. You know, he's got the bloke's got an ego, and again, that is not a criticism in any way. What might be considered a criticism is that I don't think he's going to go back on the decisions that he's made. You know, I think he'll continue, and that's what I said in the last podcast. I think we're in a situation now where Tony Stewart is unlikely to sack the manager because it would mean admitting he's made a mistake, and I'm not convinced he's in that business. So we're in a difficult situation. So getting rid of Evans is one thing, but as far as I'm concerned, he's done nothing whatsoever to even come close to indicating that he might possibly be capable of doing this job. It's a waste of time. We're wasting our time, but I don't see a way out of it at the moment.
No, I don't either. No. Football Man said, Seal blaming Steve Evans, but the poor man didn't have any money to spend all freebies. That's where you need to look. Surely people are not blind to that. What I would say is, you make some mention about the Tony Stewart issue. Steve Evans knew what we're getting into. Steve Evans worked for this bloke 12 years ago, and Tony Stewart hasn't changed. He's not putting £10 million less in the football club now than he were back then. So that's fine if you want to have a dig at Tony Stewart. I get what you're saying. I understand it completely. Steve Evans wanted to work for Tony Stewart again. He chose to work for the guy in terms of how he knows what he works. So we can't, just because you're blaming Tony Stewart doesn't mean you can't blame Steve Evans. They're essentially, I think, they're a package. They're as at fault as each other.
I think they are a package to a degree, but they're also two separate entities completely. You know, Evans is the football inside, and that's where it's all going wrong. And this nonsense about Evans not having the money, I'm not buying that. I'm not wearing that. You know, he had the opportunity to bring players in, and he has brought these players in. And there's a few that are a bit iffy, but some of them are very decent footballers. There's some decent quality within that squad, far better than the league position suggests, and far, far better than the performances. So, you know, there's a fundamental issue here, and it's not the quality of the players that are in that squad necessarily. It's about other matters, coaching and tactics being the main one. We haven't got any of either, it appears.
No. Phil will say, well, could be the same for an A manager coming in. It could. Steve says, I hope, he said, I'd hope fans would accept a mediocre season like this if they could see progress on field and off it with infrastructure, no evidence of it either. We said last year, and again, I don't like saying that, we said last year when Richardson was here, was that if we know that the work's going in behind the scenes for the training ground, for whatever else needs to be, then you can accept to step back from a football side because you're putting the building blocks in place to progress as a football club. And then what Tony Stewart's clearly done in March was, sod that, lads. I want my mate back. And that it's put us back even further with the promise of immediate success as well, which is what...
Hang your hat on the promises that he made. We said this at the time. When he was
if he says it, I'm taking it. If he says it, I'm taking it. We're holding him to his own comments. Yeah, if he would have come out with that, I wouldn't mention it. He promised... that sounds really pathetic, really. But he set the standard. He told us what to expect. That's why I'm taking that. You've got to hold him to it. We can't see it going, no, don't worry. I know you've made a mess, Steve. I know you've signed loads of crap players, so don't worry about it. We'll take 16th this year. No. he promised us when he signed off for these players in June, he'd signed most of these players already. And he guaranteed us will be challenging. So that's where we've got to be. Anyway.
Yeah, but you know as well as I do, the reality is that you hear noises coming out of his mouth.
I know.
But that's it. That's all it is. There's no basis to any of it.
But does no one else who is a Steve Evans fan and admirer understand that he's not in it for a club, he's in it for himself? And there's so much evidence to back that up. Everything he's ever said in PR about getting stopped by Rotherham fans and this, that, and the other about, like, where's that now when, you know, stuff is going wrong for him? Where is it now where he's saying, look, I know that it's tough times, but as a city, you've always been behind me. Let's get behind me again. Where's that? It's like, it's just, and the fact that he doesn't even go out and do his own press conferences. Name me one other team, name me three other teams that just do that. He was there the entire game. He wasn't ill. He wasn't banned. He didn't get sent off. There was no reason for him not to do the post-match other than he didn't want to show his face because he's scared, nervous, or because he's too annoyed or whatever, or angry, or he's in the dressing room giving them all an absolute whatever. Either way, you still go out and address the fans. You still go out and address the media. Everything about him screams the Evans show since day one. And until I see anything otherwise, it's just not, it's not going to change. And that's also a different thing, is that the reason why this is so short term is because it's such short term success, and it's because it's all about him and it's all about what he can get out of this, and that's why there's no money going into any of the infrastructure behind closed doors. There's nothing going into anything youth academy set up. You know, it's all a load of. It's just all a load of rubbish, and anyone who believes any different is as deluded as him, because it's not you can't. We're not even staying still. We're not even, like Steve said, it's not even like you can see progress. If we could see progress, if we'd lost every single game this season, but the performances were all right, and the performances were looking like the players were growing confidence, and it looked like it was a young team that he was trying to set up to play a certain way, I think a lot of us would be a lot happier with that than they are now. And I know that's really weird to say, and blah, 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 and all hypotheticals and whatnot. But if you could see progress after the last 2 seasons we've had, both on and off the pitch, you'd be so much more content with what's going on, because you know that it is going to get better. Whereas I think everyone's frustrated and angry now because where does it get better? Where does it absolutely get better? And we were getting slated whenever Evans signed, saying this is such a short-term solution. It's this, that, and the other. I'd have kept Richardson on. We all said these sort of comments, and we all got slated for it by, you know, because Evans was the best thing since sliced bread last time he was here. Now it's coming round, and this comment section is filled with people just saying he's not the best candidate. Go get Schumacher. Go get Richard Wood. Go get Revel. Whatever. It's just a case of anyone but him, is what someone said. It's so clear to everyone now that it's not. It's the players and it's the manager, and you can't change the players in one season. You've got to change the manager. You've got to change Summit. You've got to. There's no foundation works to lay on now. We are almost as far down as you can go. The only time, the only way that it's going to get worse is if we get relegated. And if we get relegated, I can guarantee you it will be absolute chaos.
If we get relegated, there's going to be pitchforks and torches in the street, to be fair.
Yeah, literally.
For me, it feels like we're in the exact same position as last season. You know, we've gone sort of downhill in Matt Taylor's first summer as manager. And with that, we got to the point, I think it was after the Watford's drubbing that he got sacked after. And we all got to the point where the performances weren't good enough. And we got to the point of anyone but him, just for a slight tangent. Wednesday got pumped 6-2 by them as well, which was quite funny. But anyway, so we're in the same situation now. It's like anyone but him. But to play devil's advocate, would anyone look at the players that we've got, how they're performing, and the rumours of how Tony Stewart got Steve Evans back in the first place, which have been all over social media recently, and really think, yeah, I fancy taking that on. I mean, Richardson, bless him, he looked at it and thought, yeah, I'll have a do at that. And from what I've heard, that was a board decision to bring Richardson in. And effectively, because we didn't rocket up to 15th in the league, Tony Stewart just went, right, well, that's not work. We're going to go with my guy now. No one's going to tell me otherwise. And hey, here's Steve Evans. But we have got a potential list of managers who are out of work who may have a go at us. The Schumacher, like you mentioned, Tom, but I think he's still getting a bit of money in from it after being paid off. Some people have mentioned Shelbourne's manager in the League of Ireland, who's just won the league. Is it Damien Duff?
Damien Duff, and I know that I don't think we should go down the route of Bill, but what I would say, if we ever got Damien Duff as a chance, that'd be amazing. Just for left foot at Chelsea. What a player. Anyway, go on, mix
absolutely.
Chime in.
But like Tom said there, it is effectively the Steve Evans show now. I mean, look at the thing with the season ticket sales. And on the last game of the season, we had Victor saying, right, I've put money behind the bar at Cutler's, go and enjoy yourselves. And effectively, as a thank you and goodbye to Rotherham fans, it was unprompted and he just did it. Whereas Evans went, I'll go and do the same, but only if we get 7,000 season ticket sales. And funnily enough, we didn't. We've not heard anything about it since. So, and I think that shows the parallel. He's not doing it because he loves Rotherham. He's doing it to get something out of us, which was effectively the club more money. I don't know, maybe he actually wanted to spend money and Stewart said, well, we'll only spend that if we get 7,000 season ticket sales. But it feels like with the promises been made, fans have been exploited a little bit, if I'm being honest. Like a comment, I'm sorry, I've lost it in the stream that we're getting at the minute. But they said Evans was signed for entertainment. He brought entertaining football. I haven't watched a match or highlights or listened to commentary or whatever where I felt entertained this season by the way Rotherham were playing. And 20 games deep, including cup games? That's not good. That's not good at all.
No, it makes you. Yeah, I know this is side talk, but we're 20 games in. We should actually include pre-season in that, shouldn't we? Really, because that's the point of pre-season is to work out kinks as well. So realistically, you're saying 20 competitive games, or I think it's actually 19, plus the 4 or 5 semi-competitive pre-season games. There should be an identity about this football team at the minute. Let's nip back to the game briefly. Make the goals. If anybody isn't aware, wasn't at the games, you'll never guess who a man at match, who a sponsor's man at match. Dawson.
I felt really bad for laughing at it, but yeah.
Cam Dawson got man at match, and I like Cam Dawson, but he threw a ball into back in net for the first goal. He had nothing else to do. To be fair to the rest of the game, he had nothing else to do. But make shambolic defending. I can pick out all three. Cam Dawson made a mistake. I'm not going to dig Cam Dawson too much. It's a poor mistake. He knows it's a poor mistake. I don't need to dig out Cam Dawson. But we can have a dig out Cam Humphries for the second goal because that's really, really poor defending. And we can complain about four different people, as Tom mentioned, for the third goal as well. Particularly the third goal, that screams to me players not wanting to put their bodies on the line. And that's a contrast to Cheltenham. We're throwing their bodies in front of everything. And we weren't really doing anything for that third goal. It screams I'm not really bothered, to be honest, from a lot of those players.
Would you put your body on the line for that management team?
No,
me neither. But I think you've answered the question there. I'm sure there are people who are supporters or who are keen to see Evans stay, who may play for him in the way that he is, but it just screams nah. It just screams no. I'm not doing it for you. Why would I? That's it's poor. It is poor because you've got to have some sort of professionalism about you and some professional pride and everything else. But that's easy for us to sit here and say that. But if you're having to suffer what we've seen these two people do on the touchline, if you're having to suffer that day in, day out in training, there's going to be a point where you're just going to go, nah, enough's enough, mate.
Mm.
And I think it appears the way that they were playing, particularly on Saturday, that maybe we've arrived at that point. You know, where the players are just saying, "Nah, stuff you," giving it middle finger because I am not gonna put my body on the line for you, because you know the players are not supporters of this football club. They are employed by the football club, and Rayner and Evans are their bosses. If they're going to be treated badly by their bosses, any of us, if you're treated badly by your boss, you're going to go, stuff you then. I'll do the bare minimum. You know, and that's the situation we're in. It appears, or that's how it looks to me. You know, if you look at, like I say, any other walk of life, if you walk into a separate company that you've never been to before, where this sort of behaviour is going off, you can spot it. You can spot it a mile off, and that's how it appears. That's how it appears now. And then what happens with one where I don't know whether you're going to come onto it or not, but the interview that Evans bottled out of, it gives it to Rayner, and what do they say about a bad workman?
Yeah,
that's all he's done, because it's his responsibility. It's Evans' responsibility to give these players the coaching and the tactics that they need to perform on the pitch, and to encourage them, to motivate them, to ensure that they go out there and do it. And screaming down the face is not the way to do it.
No.
And that's what you get. You get what you deserve, you know. And it appears to me that that's what they're getting from the players. And yes, I do blame them, because it's my football club, and it's my football club whose reputation's been ruined, I guess, because of the performances on the pitch. But you can't just look at that. You have to look deeper. You have to look under the surface and ask yourself why. And it appears that's the case. And for the manager not to come out and do the post-match interview is not acceptable under any circumstances. Again, unless he's injured himself or whatever, absolutely not acceptable. I'm sorry, I'm not having that. It's not good enough.
Yeah, let's touch on that then, Tom, because again, we'll go back. We said it about Steve Evans, we said it about Matt Taylor, Paul Rayner. To an extent, you got to feel sorry for him, because it's not his job. His job's not to do post-match presser. So I do have a little bit of sympathy for him, a little tiny bit. Having said that, what he said was these players weren't up for the game. Well, that's your job as your manager, as manager and assistant manager. That's your job to get these players up for a game. You were fought and out battled by a team who aren't as good as you. Well, if the players are up for it, I'm afraid, Paul Rayner, you're partially at fault for that. And I agree. It's an awful interview. Again, an awful interview.
Yeah. And that's two awful interviews this season, isn't it, that they've gotten on the players' backs. And does that show passion and pride, or does it just show bullying and cowardice and you know, not being able to take accountability? And I'd argue the latter, obviously, because I think it's just things. Taylor towards the end did similar things, but both Richardson and Taylor and Warne were really good at saying, look, whatever happens, it's the play, it's me. I put him out to do this. I'm at blame, blah, 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 blah. Taking the blame, shifting the blame off the players and letting them play with a bit of confidence, so that if they did muck up on the pitch, it's fine, because fans weren't going to slate him. They were going to slate the manager, blah, blah, blah. Richardson did that all the time. Even when we won, he used to say, look, this isn't on me. This is on the players. They've deserved it. They've worked hard, this, that, and the other. He never took praise. He always took criticism. And although clearly his results were shocking, and he was probably out of his depth, he was a manager that I felt quite happy to have, because he was a nice guy, and that's not like, nice guys don't always win, and that's fine. But he was someone that you could look at and think, like, you know, I hope it goes well for you. I hope things turn. And I'm sure players felt like that as well. They actually tried under him. You know, they just weren't good enough. That team that ended last season just wasn't good enough. End of. Like, that is just a stone cold fact. Whereas this is just appalling. These players are for best purpose, top end League One players, and they're playing like League Two, below League Two players, and every time they step out onto the pitch, they look like they've never seen a ball before. They look like they just can't handle pressure. They're not confident to do anything. And I've said it a couple times that every time I've been to a game, if you just watch Evans and Rayner for about 5 minutes in a game, and if we start playing the ball around the back, just one, two touch passes around the back, nothing too menacing forward, nothing too, cautious at the back, they'll both come charging out of their technical areas and absolutely give them hell for not hoofing it forward first time to someone who's not going to do anything because we don't have a target man up there. Nombe can't run the channels all for 90 minutes, etc., etc. They're absolutely terrified to not do what the managers say to do. And it's just a case of, if we do what you say and lose, we're going to get slated because we're not up for it. And if we try and play our football, we're going to get slated by you because we're not playing your football. It's a rock and a hard place for the players, and I do feel for them occasionally. But again, you can't play how they are playing and expect anything less than defeats, because I don't care how much you hate playing the football, you still run, you still try, you still try and make a tackle. I mean, have a sense of pride in what you do. I know what you were saying, Mick, before about when you have a manager or a boss in any day, any walk of life, and they're an absolute arse to you, and you just want to make their life hell as well. But and trust me, that's happened before. And for about 10, 15 minutes, you're like, right, I'm going to get my own back. And then after that, you go, actually, I have a sense of pride in myself, and I think I'm not going to stoop to your level. And I think that's what a lot of football players don't have anymore. They don't have any pride in what they do. They don't have any much cojones to actually do, shove it in their face. Look, I'm going to play better because you're actually rollicking me. It's just a case of they just need to sort it out. They need a leader in there in the dressing room, because I think we've been unfair on Clark Harris for his leadership at times.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And look, he's not a captain, but honestly, without him on the pitch, you can see a difference. And I don't know what it is that he's probably doing on it. And I don't know whether he's demanding more, this, that, and the other. And maybe the decision to make him captain was still a bad one. But him on the pitch, I can see them physically trying more. Just based on since he's been out to now, I can, honest to God, put hand on heart and say that I think that he makes a difference. And it's crazy that that's the only player, because again, we go back to 2-3 seasons ago, and it was almost like every single one of those players picked up every single one of the players around them. I mean, you could name 6 in that squad that were just, no matter what, consistent there, showed up, put on a whatever. If they were having a bad game, it didn't matter. They were still going to turn up and try. I mean, the amount of times that, not to throw him under the bus, but Wes Harding had a bad game, and then the next game he'd do the exact same things and it'd come off or it wouldn't. And, looking back on that now, I'd love to have a player like Wes Harding in the squad, which is crazy to say, because at the time you weren't happy to see him go, but you sort of like, okay, we can do a bit better. But looking back now, I'd do anything to get him back, because he played with a bit of pride and a bit of, all of them did. And is it this good human beings that Paul Warren signed, or is it this, whatever? Don't care what it was, but please bring it back. Please bring someone back that we can just invest in and just root for, because there's physically no one at the minute. Not once do I look at the team sheet and go, oh, I'm glad they're playing, or, I'm kind of hoping they have a good game, or I'm hoping they score, whatever. I'm just, I think we're all going through the motions a bit at the minute. And that's through manager, recruitment, back room, players on the pitch. It's all a shambles. And let's be honest, look, losing the first round in the FA Cup isn't the worst thing in the world by any means. And a lot of people might think we're overreacting, but this is just exposed a lot of cracks that were really, really showing. And now it's just, there's a gaping hole, and it don't get better from here.
No. It's the manner of things, isn't it? Like I said, we can all take defeat. How many times have we said that on here? How many times have we said this over the last 2 years? We can all take defeat. We're growing ups, aren't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's loads of comments I haven't got through to it. Harry says all this, and we'll end up battering Barnsley 5-0, playing like prime Barcelona.
I hope so. I actually hope so. I hope we all eat our words.
Yeah, we will.
No.
We certainly won't be that. We might sneak a 1-0, but it's not going to be special.
No.
Let's just pick up the Sam Clucas conversation. It's a bit of all and nothing, to be honest, with the Sam Clucas thing, but let's just cover it off. So in the summer, Rob Scott said at the fans forum that we didn't sign Sam Clucas basically due to injury. And then Paul Davis reported today that Steve Evans has said that we didn't sign him because we couldn't afford him, but non-league Oldham can afford him. Now, Danny, whether Sam Clucas would have been good enough for this level is a different question. We can all have that debate about Sam Clucas, who's injury record and everything else. But why is Evans mentioning it? Why is he even bringing this up? Because we obviously could have afforded to pay for him. Obviously. It's just daft. I don't know why he's done it.
I think it's a type of deflection, if I'm being honest, because a terrible one, because we're in a little bit of an injury crisis with players that, funnily enough, Steve Evans signed, and yet we said that we didn't sign Sam Clucas because of injury. So if it, I suppose it is a bit of a nothing story in of itself. Just a bit of a way to get a few clicks on the website and everything, like Old Boys joined Oldham Athletic, which was effectively Paul Davis's headline. But he didn't need to comment on it. If we'd have kept it as a thing of, we didn't sign him because he was an injury risk, he's gone to Oldham, fair enough, hope he does well, right? But the comment has unnecessarily opened a can of worms where it's like, well, actually, we didn't sign him because of financial reasons.
Being outbid by Oldham.
What? It's like, I get he's gone to Oldham and it's... Yeah, exactly. I mean, all right, fair enough. The National League isn't under the same constraints as the EFL with financial fair play and that sort of thing. All right, fair enough. But even if we'd have signed Sam Clucas for a year, he wouldn't have been on more money than, say, let's give an example. Jordan Hugel, for example. He wouldn't be on more money than that. And he would have been a perfect replacement for Ollie Rathbone, who we haven't actually replaced yet, even though we said that we would, in terms of just midfield numbers. So it's opened a can of worms by just Steve Evans opening his mouth, and really he should have just kept quiet and not say anything. But post Paul Rayner interview, it seems we're incapable of doing that at this football club. We've effectively got the hat trick now. We had Tony Stewart open his mouth for Sky Sports in an absolutely horrendous interview last season. We've had Steve Evans a couple of times this season do it, most recently with the Sam Clucas stuff, and now Paul Rayner after the Cheltenham defeat. I think that's the hat trick for this year, lads, of terrible interviews by our management and ownership staff. But it should have just been left alone, and fair enough, just been left alone. It's like Josh Ayres has joined Sheffield FC on loan for a bit of development. That's a better story, because I hope the lad does well and he progresses his game. But we've turned something that should have been a non-story into a huge thing where it's actually exposed such a massive inconsistency in this football club where we are incapable of keeping a story straight. But then that's Steve Evans and his promises this season. So it's summed up something that didn't need summing up because we all knew it anyway, but it's just like, presented with a little bow on top, and there you go, sorted.
Yeah. John Morello sums it up quite nicely. It's clear why he said it, because the bloke's an idiot.
You can say that, John. As a Birmingham fan, you can say that.
Listen to the point. I like it.
So let's look forward. We're not going to preview the Barnsley game in full because we're doing that on Thursday evening. Well, we are. Tom's going to Barcelona. Well, maybe going to Barcelona.
I know. I might not be now.
Yeah. Anyway, Tom might be with us on Thursday. But we're going to do a full preview show on Thursday ahead of the derby on Friday. We'll get the scouting report. Scouting report will be up Thursday this week because obviously we play Friday, so we had the day before. But Mick, where do we go from here? Because I could say how many games we played again if you want, but there's no point. We on here are all in agreement. I think we're all the same mind. We were all the same mind when he came in the first place. We're all of the same mind. But what's your prediction in terms of the immediate future of the football club, the immediate future of the playing side of things at the minute? We can talk about, no point going to the big picture at the minute because that's a big conversation for maybe down the line a little bit. What's your immediate kind of prediction? Where do you see things going over the next 4 weeks, let's say?
I don't think, in reality, I can't see anything changing. I can't see anything changing. I think we need to strap ourselves in probably for more of the same of what we've had up to press. Tony Stewart, I can't see pulling the trigger unless the board can overrule him. So I think we're stuck with Evans and Rayner for the foreseeable future. I cannot see for 1 second that Evans and Rayner are going to change the way that they try to play alleged football, because that's not going to happen. You know, they've had plenty of opportunities since 2012 to do that, and we're still seeing the same things now. So, in my view, strap yourself in because we're going to be having a lot more conversations like this, which I find frankly depressing.
Very depressing.
I can't stand this. It's horrible having these conversations week in, week out, and hearing people critical of us for being critical, which I get. I understand it, you know, because I don't want to be. Nobody wants to be, sort of down on their own club. But unfortunately, the situation we find ourselves in, for me personally, I find it just so demoralising, and I don't see anything at all changing because of the people involved, because of, like we've talked about, and Harry's mentioned it there in the comments, that a lot of this is about egos as well. You know, you've got two massive egos in Tony Stewart and Steve Evans, neither of whom have offered any evidence at any stage that I've been aware of that they're likely to back down. You know, they will back themselves to the hilt, whether or not they are successful. They will just continue to back themselves, which I suppose arguably is a decent quality, but you know, you've got to have something to show for it, and when you've got nothing to show for it, then you just look a fool. And unfortunately, that's where we find ourselves at the moment. Not going to change is my prediction, I don't think, until this season. I think we're in for the full season.
Okay. Harry says he thinks if he wants to sack, he will try and get Evans to resign to protect Steve Evans. Tony Stewart's ego, but then Harry says, but it's not in Steve Evans' ego to walk away.
No,
no, it's not.
You said that. I mean, you said that, and then you know he gives an interview like he did after the Cambridge game with all the
emotion.
Yeah, I don't want to use that word because that suggests that it was accurate and it was true and it was right.
God.
You know, is he a man under pressure and will he walk away? Who knows? But I don't know. If he walks away, we're in no better position. So you know, it's just I don't know. I feel like it's horrible. I hate it. I hate the whole situation. But again, we're in that. We've talked about this many times before, haven't we? You know, you've got to experience the lows to enjoy the highs. We've had so many highs that now we're getting the lows. It's really difficult to switch back into that mentality of expecting this week after week, because we've had years and years of expecting this sort of stuff week after week and being served it, but not for the last 10 years or so. And it's really difficult to flick back into that bang average League Two, League One frame of mind, which is essentially where we are. We're not even bang average at the moment.
It's worse than that, isn't it? Because we are just a bad team, and we have been a bad team for going on 2 years now. Yeah, but there's not many teams with stable ownership that's gone through results-wise as bad as us.
But we've got different players, completely different players. So unless some 17th century witch has cursed our badge, it's got nothing to do with the players, because they're different players, and we're still having the same result. You know, it's just strap yourselves in. Is my view. We ain't going anywhere.
You never know. Steve Evans might have upset some sort of Wiccan character whilst he was at Peterborough.
That's the one that. Do you remember when? And you won't remember this, but you heard the story about Barry Fry breaking the curse. John will know this about Birmingham. He was convinced there was a curse at St Andrews, so he went and took a leak on all 4 corner flags because I was told that's how it would fix the curse, and I think they lost the game after. John will be able to confirm that. I think we're one bad result away from it happening. If we lose Friday convincingly 3+, and a convincing 3+, I don't see how you can keep him. I just don't see it. How can you? You can't justify it, and I can't justify keep. If this is Matt Taylor, which it was 12 months ago, he's gone, and Matt Taylor was gone, and we all sat here. So that's probably the right decision because Matt Taylor wasn't taking us any further forward. Are we not having the same conversation now, Tom? If this guy's name wasn't Steve Evans, if this was Alan Stubbs, for example, or something like that, I think there's more points on the board than there were for Matt Taylor. But if this wasn't Steve Evans, would he be already gone?
That's a tough thing to say. Well, it's so circumstantial, but it's awful. It's pathetic. And look, we keep personally, I keep talking about the long term and the short term decision making behind this club, and so clearly was this a short term decision, and by short term I mean 2 years max, and then he was probably gone. I think his aim, or Stuart's aim, was probably get us back to the Championship as soon as you can, and then we'll reassess. And get us back to the Championship as soon as you can is not for another 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 years, and that's being optimistic at this point. Unless he does a massive revival next season and we keep him on. But I just think, look, we're gonna. I agree with you, Matt. I mean, what was the attendance on Saturday? 2,000,
less than 2.5.
Yeah, and I can't see that improving. I can see it. Well, I can, but I can't see that improving to the extent of everyone's going to go to every game. And we were talking about it on the last podcast when we were just waffling. But how you can watch half of our games now on Sky Sports Plus. How many people are just going to go, I can't be bothered to go today. I'm just going to whack it on the TV. As soon as he sees empty stadiums because of the manager and because of the style of football, because it's not enjoyable, it's not long until he's contemplating himself about sacking the manager. So why not do it now?
But the problem with that is, Tom, that he's already got the money because he already got everybody to buy season tickets. And if you're a season ticket holder, they automatically count you as in attendance for league games. So we're never going to know the true figure. Right.
I understand that, but even they're not stupid enough to go, well, there was 10,000 people there today because that's what it said on the tannoy. And when you look around, you could count them with your fingers how many there are, because it's just like it's just I don't understand it. Anyway, I think the whole thing behind that is that as soon as you understand that fans aren't coming because they're not enjoying the football, and then the players aren't playing because they're not enjoying the football. Like I said before, if you could change the whole squad, yeah, do that, whatever. I don't care. Something needs to change. But you can't physically change an entire squad. And like we've already established, these are good players, fundamentally on paper, good players who should be performing 2 to 3 levels above what they're performing at now. And whether that's the football that they're playing, the confidence that they're showing, the just current ability on the ball, whatever it might be, something's got to change. And Chairman's not going to sack himself unless he's decided, look, I've had enough, I'm gone. Players, you can't overhaul an entire squad in one day. Leaves the manager. And I hate to say it, but I agree with you, Matt. Well, I say I hate to say it because I hate to see this change, and it's so unstable, and it's not, it's not good to have 4 managers in 2 years or whatever it is. Whatever it will be, but you've got to change something. And I wouldn't look short term. I wouldn't, Schumacher would be a decent option, but he's not coming here. Let's be honest. Damien Duff, sure, would be a good decision. He's not coming here. Both young managers, if either of them wanted to take on this job, prayers to him. But you'd have to take a gamble on some. You're not. Nobody over the age of 50, please. Just take a gamble on someone who's just retired. Like, I don't know. Fleetwood did it with Charlie Adams, and he's all right. I don't know. There's probably various other managers I could think of, but it's just take a gamble on a manager who is going to need 2 to 3 years to get the club going again, because that's what we need. We need someone who's going to sign players that want to play for the club, sign players that want to play for him or her. We might even sign a female. Who knows? Manager. I mean, whatever. Just someone that can get me invested again, please. Just someone that I can get behind and go, I want them to do well. Players who I want them to do well. Just football that is good to watch. I think the only time I've enjoyed watching us this season is Peterborough first half and maybe a little bit of the Wrexham game. It was frustrating.
Peterborough weren't even a full first half, were it? We're like second half of the first half.
Yeah, it was just So that's all I've enjoyed this season. Honestly, all I've enjoyed, and that's been the last 2 seasons. Because I know I'm not the only one. And all this foolish talk of, well, it's not going to happen again from Evans at the start of the season. It's happening, and it's worse because it's worse quality. Therefore, it's arguably worse football.
Yeah. And what's frustrating is this league is not very good either. This league is really, really Birmingham aside, obviously, because But this
League of Death, my arse. This is the worst League One that we've had in a while.
It's the most League One we've had in many, many years, and to say where we are in league, that's not a good look.
No. We're 6 points off playoffs now, something like that. But Bolton won, didn't they? Well, I think middle of last week, so we've gone a bit further away. There's no point having a look. I'll look on Friday. But yeah, go on, Danny. Where do you see the next month or so? We got scheduled in, I think, 2 or 3 league games. The Bolton game could be put back in maybe. So what are you seeing in that next month or so?
I want to see some sort of improvement, but the more we go into the season, the more I'm coming to not expect that, because there isn't improvement over a full 90 minutes. There's very little improvement over 45 in some games as well. But no, I'm sort of in the same boat of, weirdly, Barnsley feels like a crunch point. Like, I know it's not as much of an intense rivalry as the Wednesday one. It's sort of in the same boat as the Sheffield United rivalry, where on a match day we'll give it to each other, but after that we'll shake hands and go separate ways again. But for me, it is a bit like the Wednesday game that we lost 2-0 in. Like, obviously 2-0 isn't the worst scoreline to lose by in the world, but it's how you lose. And the games that we have lost this season have been defined by how we've lost them. Like, just as the Cheltenham game, for an example, the players weren't bothered. Whether or not that's down to coaching or themselves or whatever, we'll leave that debate where it is. But the Barnsley one, if we lose even 2-0 again, but lose horrifically, where we just don't challenge it whatsoever and don't treat it as what it is, which is a derby, then you have to put Steve Evans in the same argument as Matt Taylor and Lee Richardson, where it's just like, well, why is Evans getting so much time and they didn't? I think we all know the answer why as well. But after the Barnsley game, if we do lose it and lose it badly, you'll have more of the fan base against you. And eventually that'll push it to the point where, like Tom says, we won't bother going because we just won't like what we're seeing, and we won't bother wasting the Saturdays or Tuesday evenings to watch games that we know we're going to lose. It's like, I think last season the attendance sort of stopped at hovering around 8,000 or so, but that was because in the Championship we get much bigger away attendances. Yeah. So this season it'll probably float around 6,000, which, as a ground like as small as ours, to have it half full is shocking. But if you play shocking football, no one's going to come and watch you, are they? And the football that you play ultimately goes to how it's coached. And if it's not coached well, then you change the coach and hope that it brings more people back. But I am scared of Barnsley on Friday because I think if we play like we did against Cheltenham, which isn't a million miles away, because that was a strong 11 that we had against Cheltenham. If we play similar to that in a similar style with a similar team, we'll get absolutely battered on Friday.
Yeah, I think we'll cover it Thursday. But Chris is right. I heard Barnsley have only won once at home since February. Yeah, beat Bristol Rovers, but we couldn't beat at home since then. But anyway, yeah, I don't know what else. Somebody mentioned about Bolton game. By the way, there's a chance that the Bolton game may be moved into early December because we are both helpfully out of the FA Cup. 30th of November, it could get moved to. No confirmation by the club yet, but that's something to watch out for. We could have an extra game in there potentially. Which is helpful, really, because you don't want an international break, a game, and then another kind of break in between. So, this has been depressing, hasn't it? Jesus, sorry everybody, I'm really sorry. But the upside is we'd have played Salford away, and nobody really wants to go Salford away, do they? So we've dodged a bit of a bullet with that one. He says, try and put some sort of positive spin. Is there anything else we need to mention?
It's just depressing, isn't it? And I apologise if we've upset or annoyed anybody with the criticisms, but it's all about opinions. I think Paul mentioned in the comments, we're all managers, aren't we? We're not, but we've all got opinions, and yeah, it's depressing. Demoralising.
I think the positive we can get from it is, regardless of what happens, because it's out of our control, unless there are riots in the streets, we'll still all be here, however many days, months, years' time, being all Rotherham fans, won't we?
Yeah.
Years is ambitious. It's taking time off his lives, this mate. Watching this.
Don't be taking too much off mine.
Anything else?
Just for what it's worth, Paul Weller were amazing on Saturday night. If anybody gets the opportunity to go and see him while he's on this tour, highly recommend it.
Very nice.
Fair enough. John did also confirm the Barry Fry story. Gypsies apparently cursed the area where St Andrews was built hundreds of years ago, and Barry Fry got in touch with the clairvoyant who told him to pee in all corners to lift the curse. There you go. Now they're in League One. It didn't work.
I want to do that. I want to tell people how to get rid of curses. That'd be a great job.
Deering Code wants a ref rant. We ain't got time. Mick's got to go, to be honest with you.
Stay tuned for Thursday.
But my word, that referee was horrific. It was bitty, and he was one of those referees that kind of made decisions where everyone in the cinema goes, I don't know what I can't work out how he's made that. It's like a throw-in or whatever. And there's two people in the entire stadium that think it's that decision, and it's the referee and the lines. But it was just horrific. But anyway, don't know what to say about this club at the minute. It's difficult, but we'll be back in 3 days' time to talk about it some more. We're back on Thursday evening to preview the only South Yorkshire derby of the season, which is the trip to Oakwell. It's a sign of the times that we haven't even sold that 3,000 out. That's a sign of where the fans are at the minute, that we're not selling out 3,000 tickets for Barnsley, because that would have been sold out a couple of years ago. But anyway, make sure you have subscribed on YouTube if you haven't done so already. If you want to go back and look for the instant reaction, me and Ben had a quick chat, and thank you to Simon Thorne who filmed us for that quick instant reaction where we were very cold. You can see me and Ben jostling around to get some warmth into us because it's gone cold after the games now. But make sure you have subscribed, like the video. If you're listening on iTunes and Spotify, we appreciate it, and thank you very much. Make sure, again, you have subscribed and given the video a 5-star, the thingy podcast, a 5-star rating, where it allows you to do so as well. Thank you. You might not see Tom on Thursday. You might. Depends what happens with Barcelona. But thank you, Tom.
Yeah, I know. I'm eager to see myself. Flights are paid for, so I'm there. It's just whether or not I get back.
Yeah, depends if the plane can land or not is the issue.
Yeah, literally.
But yeah, Nick, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Ben, Danny, it's nice to have you back.
Yeah, always a pleasure. I think this club's taking brain cells out of you, Matt.
Absolutely is. Ed's mashed, mate. We'll see you all next time. And as always, fireworks. Up the Millers.
Up the Millers.
All the Millers.
I think I always made the comment that once a Miller, always a Miller.
Ravel, ambitious, but brilliant! I don't believe it! I swear I do not believe it! Good Evans, he's done it again. Another promotion for the big man.
I've got 12 bottles of champagne in my office and we're going to drink them all night.
Do me a favor, drop me off in